What is up, ladies and gentlemen? But most of all, you ladies out there, thanks for clicking on another episode of Break the Silence. I am your host, Cyborg. Is Kevin Durant coming to Boston? Up next. Yak 'em! Let's talk a little hoops, because if you don't break the silence will break you. First, please take a second to like and subscribe to the channel. We are about to hit 300 subscribers, and I'm super pumped for that because as soon as we hit 300, I'm dropping my top 50 current players in the NBA from 50 to 1, 5 different videos of 10. The reason I'm doing this is because you hear a lot of guys talk about their top 10 NBA players, but we don't get to hear a lot of our favorite players talked about because they don't land in that top 5, top 10. So I wanted to truly break them down, analyze the guys, show some in-depth analysis when we're talking about some players that you don't get to hear talked about as much. And I'm super pumped for it, so please take a second to like and subscribe. I appreciate all your support so far, but we got a banger for you right now because Kevin Durant is still requesting a trade from the Brooklyn Nets. As Shams and Woj reported this morning, the Celtics offered a trade package of Jaylen Brown, Derek White, and a first-round pick to the Brooklyn Nets for Kevin Durant. And the Nets reportedly turned it down. Now, there are multiple perspectives I want to look at here. First, from a Celtics perspective, Nets perspective, and then you want to ask the question, why is this news being released? Because a lot of people just read the headline and think, that that's what's going to happen, or don't understand why teams leak news like this. And then I also want to look at the overall landscape of the league, because I think that this is a big deal for the Los Angeles Lakers if Kevin Durant were to get traded. So let's start from a Boston Celtics perspective, because as many of you know, I'm a diehard Boston Celtics fan. I have been my entire life. You can see my KG jersey here, my KG book up here. Fantastic book, by the way. But been a diehard Celtics fan. And in my lifetime, they have provided a lot of joy. But they've only won one title. And the Boston Celtics are known for a team that hangs championship banners, not Eastern Conference championships or division championships or making the play-in or anything like that. We're hopefully not a team that would react like the Minnesota Timberwolves and jump up on the scorer's table when we win a play-in game. Because the Celtics are supposed to be a team that wins titles. But when you really look at it from an objective perspective, are the Celtics that team anymore? The Celtics, what you don't understand is they have 17 championship banners, which is the most all-time, tied with the Lakers. But one of those is since 1986. Every other one was before then. You can't be a team that rests on your laurels that you used to win, titles. Because the same team that you said you weren't is what you are right now. And it's what a lot of fans are wanting the Celtics to become, a team that wins Eastern Conference Finals. Because when you go on Celtics social media today, you'll see so many people saying, no, Jaylen Brown just helped lead us to the finals. Well, you argued that you were a team that wanted to win titles, not Eastern Conference championships. So who are you? If you are a team that actually wants to be title contenders and say, we compete for championships here in Boston, you make this trade for Kevin Durant. You give up Jaylen Brown, a bunch of picks. If you have to give up Grant Williams, Derek White, you do it. You give up those guys for Kevin Durant, because what Kevin Durant represents is championship contention, is real championship favorites. That's what Kevin Durant represents. So Jaylen Brown is an awesome NBA player, and a lot of Celtics fans have probably already clicked off this video. But Jaylen Brown, like I said, awesome player, and we have an affection as Celtics fans because we got to watch him grow and blossom into the player he is today. Jaylen Brown showed flashes as a rookie, and then with Kyrie Irving, kind of had to take a step back because he wasn't as involved. And then when Kyrie Irving left, we watched Jaylen Brown finally make his first All-Star game and then be the second best player on a team that made the NBA Finals. And a lot of you might say the Celtics are championship contenders. I agree to an extent with their current roster. Because when you look at the NBA, when you look at sports in general, you'll hear me talk about this all the time because I think it's one of the most important concepts in sports that is not talked about enough. There are championship windows and they're so short and they can close so quickly. There's so many NFL teams that you look at that thought that they were going to be good for years to come because they had a good roster. And there's so many NBA teams that you were like, okay, well, we had a great year this year. Just wait till we develop next year and be better next year. And it's always, oh, we're this good now. Let's see what we are in the future. And that mindset can sometimes be true, but it's almost always not. When you think about the Atlanta Falcons with Julio, Matt Ryan, the Carolina Panthers with Cam Newton, there's so many NFL teams. Even the Eagles won a title, but then immediately crashed and burned. Their quarterback's gone, their coach is gone, and their whole roster has been revamped. So when you look at it, you have a couple year opportunity to take advantage of what you have before it's gone. Because you look at the Utah Jazz from 2 years ago, finished number 1 in the West, had a 2-0 lead on the Clippers. Kawhi Leonard gets hurt. And then they lose that series and then fall apart completely. Have to trade Rudy Gobert. Donovan Mitchell now is maybe on his way out as well. The Phoenix Suns last year made the NBA Finals, and they might never make it again. The Cincinnati Bengals made the Super Bowl last year. It is not guaranteed that they ever make the Super Bowl again with Joe Burrow as their quarterback. It's just not guaranteed. So when you have the opportunity to truly put together a championship team and a team that can really, really win a title, you have to do it. You have to take that risk. Even if 5 years from now you were like, yeah, Kevin Durant is now retired, Jaylen Brown would have been nice to have 5 years from now. But here's what you don't understand when you're talking about this. Yes, Jaylen Brown is young, but is it guaranteed that he stays on the roster for the next 10 years? No, it's not. Because when you look at every NBA player, most of them are not on the team that originally drafted them. Even the best players in the league are not on the team that originally drafted them. You have a few exceptions, Giannis and Steph, but for the most part, they move around a ton. So that's what when you're talking about this, you are not saying 10 years of Jaylen Brown or 2 years of Kevin Durant. That's not what you're talking about. You're saying 3 years of potentially winning a title with Kevin Durant, or whatever. Jaylen Brown's contract has 2 years left on it. He's disgruntled because he's always in every trade rumor. If in 1 year from now you keep Jaylen Brown, let's say this trade doesn't go through and you keep Jaylen Brown. If in 1 year from now Jaylen Brown's like, I would love to see what it's like to run my own team, be the best player on my own team, rather than having Jason Tatum beside me, and he then demands a trade, you then get a quarter on the dollar for Jaylen Brown, when you could have potentially got Kevin Durant and actually competed for titles. And like I said, I know that most Celtics fans have already clicked off the video by this point. But that's how I feel as a Celtics fan, that if you truly want to go all out on a chance to win a title, you go make this trade. You got to go make it. You got to make it happen. Now, let's look at the Nets' perspective here for a second. The Nets, I believe, leaked this report. I also saw that this might be a few weeks old that this trade was being talked about. And the reason is, if the Nets have felt like the trade market has started to gone dry a little bit, or that teams aren't really sure what package to put together, when they release this report that the Celtics are interested, this starts to put a little pressure on some of the other teams. When you're talking about the Heat, when you're talking about the Raptors, who might be interested in Kevin Durant. So when you see that there's more competition out there, simple supply and demand. If the demand is starting to increase, the price goes up. It's just how it works. So the Nets will release this report, but it also kind of ticks Jaylen Brown off. If it comes out that Jaylen Brown demands a trade in the next couple of days, would anyone be surprised? We just saw him tweet shaking my head, clearly upset. So when you're the Nets, do you feel like you could do a whole lot better than a Jaylen Brown and a bunch of picks trade? If you had a nucleus of Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Ben Simmons, and a bunch of picks, that's a team that that you feel like is a solid young squad, or even if you trade Ben Simmons or you trade some of these guys and you just really, really rebuild, you could have a ton of assets. And that's what's cool for the Nets when you look at it this way. If you truly have to get rid of Kevin Durant and then you have to trade Kyrie Irving, which I'm going to talk about here in a second, you have to trade Kyrie Irving, you could have a ton of assets to rebuild this roster and not feel like it was a waste getting Kevin Durant and Kyrie. Now, let's get into the Kyrie part of it because I think that this is the other part. If you're the Los Angeles Lakers this morning, you are super excited because if you thought you had the opportunity to get Kyrie Irving and the Nets eventually said, no, we're just going to keep Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. Well, it was reported that Kevin Durant wants out. He still wants out. So that has not gone away. It wasn't a phase for him or anything like that. If the Nets trade Kevin Durant, then that almost certainly means Kyrie Irving is gone. And I don't know, and we've talked about this a lot, I don't know what the trade market is for Kyrie Irving. How many teams out there want this ball-dominant guard that might not show up for work and, is really tough to handle and says some crazy stuff in the media? How many teams want that? So the Lakers are potentially the only team that that would want the Kyrie Irving experience. So if Kevin Durant gets traded, this means that the Lakers have a greater chance of getting Kyrie Irving. And you know what this makes me think? How great would an NBA Finals be between the Boston Celtics with Kevin Durant and Jason Tatum and the Los Angeles Lakers with LeBron and Kyrie Irving? With how much Kyrie is hated by the Celtics and how much the rivalry between Kevin Durant, LeBron James, the Celtics-Lakers rivalry, this would be an all-time series. I would be so excited for that. And it just brings up great thoughts like that. So this is crazy news. We're going to keep staying up with all the reports on it. If anything else comes out, if this trade goes through, if any of these trades go through, we're going to get on here and we're going to talk about it. So please take a second to like and subscribe. Like I said, Cyborg out.